Hello, you want to draw good? I want to draw good. Let's talk about how to make better line art. Okay, so today I'm going to show you 3 different practices or drills that you can do to increase the quality of your line art. Now, just to be clear, this isn't going to make you an amazing artist. You're not going to magically become a better designer or a better artist just by doing these drills, but hopefully by doing them, you can have better looking line art. Now, the first one we're going to talk about is line control. Now, this exercise is basically going to teach you how to do clean, confident, straight lines. Now, the way to do that is pretty simple. You're going to draw 2 points on the page, wherever on the paper, and you're going to connect them via a straight line. Now, obviously, the closer to the center of the X you get, the better your line is. That's the whole point of the exercise. And you can start out really small with points very close in between, and then slowly work your way up and then make them further and further apart as you go. And then maybe towards the end, you want to try and have like the points at the opposite end of the page and like do a really, really long, clean line. Now here's what something like that looks like in real time. Not too fast, but not too slow, just very controlled. A good tip that I have is to look at the X in which you're drawing towards. Don't keep your eyes on the line, look at where you're going to and keep your eyes there, and your hand will naturally guide you towards that point. It's kind of like riding a bike, where you're just looking forward and not down at the wheels. You're going to find that there are certain angles that you're better or worse at, but the whole point of this training is to make you suck less at what you suck at. And if you mess up, it's okay, just do it again. Try again, keep trying until you get closer and closer to the center of the X. Now for these kind of exercises, I usually like drawing with a pen just because, when you have a pencil, you kind of have a tendency to feather it and not be super confident with your line art. But with ink, you're kind of just forced to send it. Alright, now the next one is a line consistency exercise. Now for this one, you're going to have to draw some straight lines. They're not necessarily parallel. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But just draw them in sets of 2, nice and straight. Use a ruler for this. So what you're going to do is sort of like fill in these gaps of your straight lines crosswise by hatching. So what you want to be mindful of is being consistent with the length of your lines, the angle, and also the distance in between. Now there are a few variations. The first one I'm doing is just to practice my consistency and uniformity. So I want it all the same length, all the same angle, and all about the same distance for the entirety of this line. Another variation is, and this is really good for learning how to shade, is starting from the start being really, really close apart and then slowly going further and further and further apart. So you have the illusion of like dark going to light. This is really good for practicing hatching. You can fill it in with straight parallel lines like I am, or you could cross hatch, or any sort of pattern you can think of, as long as you go from dark to light, from dense to less dense. Now the last variation I'm going to show you is you kind of like handwriting lessons where you're just filling in circles in between these lines. It's a lot harder than it looks, just having these circles touch the edge, the top and bottom of the line each time, every time. So going back to the parallel lines, it doesn't have to be parallel. You can even have these lines going from really narrow to really wide and then practice the variation in width. So you're filling in from a tiny little narrow space and slowly getting longer and longer, filling in a wider and wider space. Again, it doesn't have to be a single line like I am doing. You can always cross hatch or any sort of shading pattern that you're trying to practice. Okay, the last one is ellipse practices, and this is really important when you have to draw ellipses in perspective. So first thing you want to do is draw a sort of plane, a square in perspective. And then you want to fill it in with a circle, with the edge of the circle touching the center of each line. This exercise is really good for learning how to place ellipses in perspective. It's especially useful for drawing vehicles, like placing the wheels in perspective, and also drawing any kind of cylinder. It's just one of those basic skills in order to draw in perspective, and this exercise is really good at helping you get better at that. Now you'll notice that I'm drawing a line across some of these ellipses. I'm trying to picture the center line going through the ellipse, kind of like an axle on the wheel of a car. And eventually, you might not even need to use the boxes anymore. By placing down, the central axis of the ellipse, you can basically visualize where the ellipse is in space. This is definitely my favorite exercise of the 3 to do, just because it's like kind of fun and also really hard at the same time. I'm really bad at placing ellipses in perspective, but I guess when it comes to all of these exercises, it might seem a little bit tedious, but once you get to do it, it's actually really addicting and therapeutic at the same time. Now you see how useful it is when it comes to drawing a cylinder. You can sort of map it out using a cube at first, and then drawing a cylinder within that using the technique shown in this exercise. So that's it, pretty simple. Go do that and hopefully you will have better line art. If you like this video, like it, comment, subscribe. You know what to do. Okay, goodbye, have a nice day.